Hi guys, Jamie here from JB Motion. In today's video, we're going to be creating this, and some of you might recognize this as I have done a similar video to this in the past, but I have received a number of comments from you guys asking me if I could recreate it using the latest software. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be recreating this using the latest version of Cinema 4D 2024.4, and there have been so many changes to the software, what everybody's using to render and all that good stuff. I just want to give a shout out to iRender today. They are sponsoring this video. So for any of you who don't know, iRender is a GPU accelerated cloud render farm. It's the simplest and easiest GPU cloud rendering that I have personally used. If you guys are interested to give them a try, I have a link to their website in the description below. First time iRender users are able to receive a 100% bonus on their first payment if made within the first 24 hours of registration. So now is a great time to give iRender a go. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started on this. Here we go. Okay guys, so starting this off in After Effects, we're going to bring in the video. You guys can download this from the description below. Let's drag it down to this composition icon. Actually, Control Z, undo that. We're going to select the video, hit Control Alt G to interpret the footage. We don't want this decimal value. We want to round that off so that we can set this up nice and easy in Cinema. So just hit OK on that. And now we can do that step at the start. Just bring that down to the composition icon. So this is the video that we're going to be working with. So first of all, we need to render this out as a PNG sequence. So go to Composition and go to Add to Render Queue. Here we can set the output to be a PNG sequence. Hit OK on that, and we're going to output this to a folder I've already created, and I've already rendered this called Movie Sequence, or whatever you want to call the folder, that's fine. Just hit save there. I'm going to cancel because I've just done already. And then once you've done that, this render button will be clickable. Just click on that. So that's going to render away for you guys, and we'll pop into Cinema once that has done its business. As my one's already done, I can go ahead and jump in Cinema right now. So I'm going to go to the track layout here, and let's double click to create a motion tracker object. And let's do it again to select the footage. So here we have our footage. Just double click on any one of these. Now, you guys might be seeing a bit of a glitch. So I'm using the latest version of Cinema 4D. That's what this tutorial is all about. 2024.4. So if I go here to filter, actually options, this is probably on for you guys, and it's probably why you're probably just seeing a glitch in your footage, or maybe you're just seeing nothing at all. So to fix that, just go to options and turn off linear workflow shading, and that'll fix that for you. Maxon know about the glitch, so they should be fixing it in the next patch. Now we can crank up the resampling on this, and if I hit play, I just want to load all of our frames into cache. So I'm going to pause the video here, and we'll pop back in once that's done. Okay, so that is fully loaded into cache, so we'll get a bit of a smoother playback on that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the Objects tab, and we're going to click on Motion Tracker. And we're going to do this nice and quickly. In previous tracking videos using Cinema 4D's native tracker, I've done a lot of 2D manual tracking, automatic tracking with auto tracks. We don't need to do any of that. We don't need to create any masks. We don't need to exclude any of the footage. The footage is good to go. So all we need to do is go to tracker, and we can do a full solve. So that's you're going to see it's going to start loading down here. It is going to take a bit of time. So again, I'll pause the video and we'll jump back in once it's done. What we can actually do while we're waiting for this to do its business is we can go to Mixamo, and we can grab our character. So the character I'm using is the mannequin guy, the mannequin, I suppose. He's under characters, and if you just search for man, that should be enough to find him. There he is there. So just select him and go to animations, and the animation is looking around. So I think it's this one. And I want to slow down the speed at which he's moving around the place. So I'm going to bring the overdrive down to 0. And you can see that that's going to give us a lot more frames as well. So let's download that and make sure that it's set to 30 frames per second, as is our entire project going to be set to. And let's click on download. Let's jump back into Cinema. So you can see that we're still waiting on this to perform the 3D solve. So again, I'll pause the video while that's doing its thing. Okay, so that's finished. So if we deselect the motion tracker object just by clicking anywhere here, you can see that we have all our track points. They're a bit big, so if we go back into our motion tracker, go to Options in the 2D tracking tab, click on Options. And is it Options? Oh no, go to the 3D solve tab actually, go to Display, and we can bring this radius down to like 0.3, something like that. So that makes it a bit easier to look at. And now if we hit play, you can see that we have our full solve all nice and done. So now I suppose we can bring in our character. Actually, before we do that, let's tell Cinema where we want World Center to be. So we want our guy to be on this table. So it makes sense that we pick a point on the table to be World Center. So it's easy to align him to our table once we bring him in. So I'm going to get one of these 2 points. Let's click on the motion tracker object and go to Tracker, Constraints, and create Position Constraint. I'm going to select this one here. And now if we deselect, you'll see that we have that at World Center. So if we create anything here, maybe not a cube, but if we create a figure, you can see that he's going to be at World Center and he is stuck onto the table there. Brilliant. So let's delete him. And now we can go and bring in the guy that we just downloaded from our downloads folder. So let's first of all do a file, save as, and let's just save this before we go any further. So I'm going to call this made up mannequin. And now we can go ahead and bring in our character. So let's go to File, Merge, and Downloads. Here he is here, looking around. Click OK on that. And say no to that. So we didn't delete our figure. Let's do that now. So now we have our geometry and our skeleton of our guy. Select both of those and hit Alt G to put that into a null. We can call this mannequin. And we want to scale him down as well. So if we go to coordinates, we can bring this down to like 0.4 on each of the X, Y, and Z parameters there. Cool. Okay. So we also want to reposition him. So select the mannequin null and make sure your object mode is selected. We don't want to have 2D tracks mode selected. We're going to go to model mode, actually it's called. Middle mouse click, and we're going to go to a right view. We can bring him down. If we grab our move tool, we can bring him down to the floor, which is here, identified by this blue line. So just bring him down and he's going to be on the floor. And if we go into our top view and zoom in, so you can see that all these green track points and these ones here, they're showing up here. So we kind of get an idea of the orientation of the table, something like that. So let's align our mannequin guy so he's kind of like in between those two real life mannequins. Hit R on your keyboard and we can just rotate him. Let's jump into our 4-way view and have a look at that. Okay, so I feel like he's still a little bit too big. I'm going to click on him again, go to the coordinates tab, bring this down to 0.3. And that looks a bit better, but we have to reposition him again down to the floor. Okay. So if we just scrub along, we'll center him up a bit more. to our table. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So right now we are using, let's do a file save. Right now we're using a standard Cinema 4D camera. Now we're all using Redshift these days. It's what's set up in our render settings automatically. So what do we do to get a Redshift camera in here? Well, we just create one. And we want the Redshift camera to basically follow along exactly with the standard Cinema 4D camera. So all we have to do is make this a child of the solved camera. And if we activate this, now you can see that we can hit play, and that Redshift camera is going to be following along exactly with our standard Cinema 4D camera. So that's all well and good, but now we can no longer see our background. So to do that, we just need to go to our Redshift camera, go to background, override, and we're going to select the movie sequence that we rendered out of After Effects. Here it is here. Say no to that. And now we can see our video in the background, but it's not playing for us. We need to go to the image thing here, twiddle that down, go to the animation tab and change the mode to simple. The frame rate is correct, and we can just click on detect frames. And let's just ensure that the frame rate is all set up correctly in our render settings. It's by default set to 30 frames per second, so it should be good to go. So that is fine. So now if we hit play on this, you'll see that our background is now animated. Let's turn off the work plane. We don't need to see that anymore. Okay, that's all looking well and good. So let's create a material for our guy, because right now he is using a standard Cinema 4D material. So we need to create a new Redshift material for him. So open up the materials panel, double click, and here we have it. We can apply this. We can just overwrite this standard Cinema 4D material. And let's just, for now, grab a color from one of these mannequins. And we can maybe increase the roughness a little bit, just so he's not so shiny. And we need to get some lighting in here as well. So let's do a file save. But before we do any lighting, let's just go into our Redshift view, into our Redshift render view. And let me just close this down. And let's hit play on this. Okay, so I'm getting a problem here because I don't have much VRAM, so I'm going to have to close down After Effects before we go any further with this. I'll just file save this as the made up mannequin After Effects file. And now hopefully if I close this down, I should be good to render this now in Cinema. Okay, cool. Yeah, not a lot of VRAM, so I have to kind of close stuff down to get stuff to work with Redshift anyway. So you can see that I'm quite zoomed in. I'm not seeing like the full 1920 by 1080 view. So to fix that, you guys might not have this issue at the moment, but if you are, all you have to do is click on this little double arrow button here. Go to your little cog settings. Or no, you don't even need to click on that. Just click on the original size drop down and set that to fit window. Cool. So yeah, so lighting. We will need to get some lighting in here so we can get some shadows for our guy. And we need to be casting them on this table. So we have yet to create the table, but let's create a dome light first. And we're going to drive this dome light with an image from one of our frames that we rendered out from After Effects. So let's click on the little path folder here and go to the movie sequence. I'm going to use the very first frame and say no on that. Now watch when I click no, you'll see the lighting information is going to change here, and hopefully it's going to look more like he's in the scene. Just click on no. Okay, so you could argue that it looks worse, but that's all well and good. We're still getting a bit of, we still are getting that nice light information from this image. So all we have to do to make this look better again is click on the material, or actually open up the materials panel, click on the material here, and we can just change the color of this to be a bit whiter. Something like that. I'm actually going to go back to original size. Makes more sense that we're zoomed in instead of trying to squint so we can see what we're doing. And we might want to increase the intensity of our dome light as well. So I'm going to bring that up to something like that, perhaps. Okay, so that's looking pretty good so far. So we need to get some shadows in here. So to do that, we're going to create a floor or a table or whatever it is. It's a floor to him because he's standing on it. So let's create a plane and we'll call this floor. So now you can see we're getting some weirdness here. I don't know what that. Okay, it looks like I've created a Redshift area light by accident. So let's just delete that. Okay, I don't know how with that. I must have clicked it by accident. But now you can see that we're getting some nice contact shadows where his feet are, which is great. But we don't want to see the floor. We just want to see the shadows that it's creating or that are being cast on it. So to do that, we're going to right click on the floor, go to render tags. We're going to add a Redshift object tag, go to the matte tab, click on override, click on enabled in general, and we're going to enable shadows. We're also going to be enabling this as well, but I'll wait till the end to show you that so that you can see why I'm going to be enabling it. And that's looking pretty good. But if I just stop rendering this for a second, and if I just go to my default camera, and I'll just play this for a little while. Now, see that? So this Mixamo animation that we downloaded isn't perfect. His feet kind of just lifts up the ground and stuff like that, and like goes back down. So, you know, it's the Mixamo motion capture isn't exactly the best. So we are going to have to fix that unless we want some weirdness. Like at this point in time, if I go back to my Redshift camera and hit play, you know, we don't want this. It's not going to look great. So we are going to have to fix that. So let's go and do that now. We're going to have to use a few keyframes to fix that, unfortunately. But it won't be too bad. Let's grab our mannequin null, go to the coordinates tab. We're going to be keyframing the y-axis, and we're also going to be keyframing this rotation property and this one. We're not going to be messing around with this one, just these two. So let's add a keyframe here and make sure you're on frame 0, adding all these first keyframes. So let's middle mouse click and go into a better view, like the right view, and zoom in. So this foot is levitating ever so slightly. So let's hit R, go to your rotation tool. I'm going to, instead of using one of the rotation handles so that I'm kind of restricted to rotate along a certain axis, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hover around the middle of the rotation tool so I can actually just freely rotate him, if that makes sense. But we're only going to be adding keyframes again for these two. So this one is not going to be affected. Well, it will, but it won't make a difference. We're only going to be rotating them ever so slightly. So we're going to avoid any levitating feet, basically. So just kind of click and ever so slightly with just be very gentle in your mouse movements to get his feet nice and flat-ish on the floor. So I'm happy enough with that. You could argue that there is still a bit of a gap, but it's barely noticeable. I could try and kind of like improve on that a bit. Yeah, and I have. So it's just kind of like a bit of finesse and trying to get that right. Then we go to the mannequin null and we add keyframes. We already have the Y set up. We didn't adjust the Y coordinate, so we just need to set those keyframes. Let's jump ahead like 60 frames and let's then start rotating him again. We're going to try and get his feet again flat on the table. So it looks like we're going to have to push him down along the Y this time. I just use spacebar to switch between the currently selected tool and the previously selected tool. And then we're going to push him down so that he is back to the floor again. That's fine. We're going to add some, so we adjusted the Y position this time, so we need to keyframe this and this and this. Let's jump ahead another 60 frames-ish. And let's see how that's looking. That's looking pretty good. That's okay. We'll go to like frame 160. So you can see we need to adjust this because he's intersecting with the floor there. So let's grab our rotate tool. And again, I'm just going to be freely rotating him. We're going to have to push him up along the Y. Spacebar to switch back to the previously selected tool. Push him down or up just to get him on the floor. And I might bring him down a little bit. Ever so slightly. Cool. More keyframes. One here, and one here. Jump ahead another bunch of keyframes. Again, his feet are gone mental. Oh, I didn't mean to hit play there. Rotate him again. Undo that. I kind of messed that up a bit. Push him down. Cool. Some more keyframes. Here, here, and here. And that's okay. Intersecting here. Let's push him up. And rotate him again. Push him down a bit. So slightly. Much finesse. Okay, and some more keyframes again. Cool. And I think the animation's pretty much finished at this stage. Like, as in he's not even moving anymore. So we can check the keyframes. So we can see we have a keyframe here, keyframe here, keyframe here, keyframe here, keyframe here. So we just want to kind of go in the middle of all our keyframes. So you can see we need to adjust here again in the middle of those two these two keyframes. We're just going to check in the middle of all the keyframes we just set now. I'm going to push him down. That's fine. Some more keyframes. Keyframe, keyframe. Now we'll check kind of in the middle of these two keyframes. Yeah, so he's gone crazy again there. We need to push him down. We probably actually need to rotate him. Because he's gone wild for this part here. Yeah. Okay. Keyframe, keyframe, keyframe. Keyframe, keyframe, keyframe. Let's check the middle of these two keyframes. Yeah, I need to adjust him as well again. So we'll rotate him. Push him down. Oh no, not push him down. Rotate him even more, I'd say. Something like that. And then push him down. Cool. And I think we're almost there with all the keyframing. It does take a bit of time, but I mean, if you skip this part, it's not going to look great. We'll check in the middle of these two keyframes. We need to adjust again. But once you get this done, it's well worth it in the end. Push him down. Cool. Keyframe the Y and the two rotation parameters there. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for the keyframing. So we can just kind of like go back. We'll do a file save. And we go to frame 0. Feet look good. Go to like a little few frames ahead. That looks good. Looking goodish there. I mean, bit of a foot levitation there, but I'm happy enough with that. I can live with that. I can live with a little bit of foot levitation. It would be a cool trick. Okay, I think we need to fix this. We need to push him down anyway, for sure. Yeah, that's fine. Keyframe the Y there. Go here. Not too bothered about that. We are getting a bit of foot intersection there between this keyframe and this keyframe. So I might go like kind of here and just kind of fix that, and then we're definitely done. Whoops. And let's push him. Oh no, we don't need to push him up. He looks good there. So we'll just do keyframe, 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 and that's pretty much it, guys. So if we stop rendering there, go into perspective, let's keep an eye on his overall animation. Actually, I'm going to go out of my camera view as well, so I can just kind of focus on him. Just to make sure he doesn't look weird with all those keyframes that we just added. No, he looks like a normal moving mannequin that you'd see in any clothing store. Yeah, okay. No, so I just wanted to make sure it didn't look weird with all those keyframes. That looks pretty good. We'll check the Redshift camera view. And yeah, okay, that's looking pretty good. So if we just check how our render is looking now, we'll go to fit to window. We can close down this materials panel to give us a bit more space in our render view. Yeah, and I think that's looking pretty good. I mean, we could do it like maybe a light up here on top of his head, because we're getting a lot of specular highlight on top of their heads. So let's see, maybe if we grab an area light. Let's grab an area light, the one, just the one. And we can right click on this, go to animation tags. Let's grab a target tag and make the mannequin the target object. So now this is huge. We're going to scale this area light down to be really small. Go into the right view and we can kind of just push this down a bit closer to his head. Let's just see what we're getting here with this. Too bright. I'm liking the highlight though, but I think it needs to be on the other side of him. Let's go back to frame 0. No, I mean, well, I suppose you could argue that like you could have one. You could make it much smaller, I should say, and like push it over. And then you could possibly hit control, click and drag. And then you had another one, which would, well, they'd both be quite less intense. Something like that, maybe. And the same for this one, bring down the intensity. So if we turn both of those off and then turn them back on, yeah, I think it looks better with them on. Turn off our dome light. Yeah, we definitely need the dome light. Let's do a file save. And I think that's pretty much it. I mean, we could play around with his material. He's looking a bit too white for me. We could yellow him up a bit. Something like that, maybe. Could look good. That area light is a bit too intense still. Is it this one? Yeah, I think that's, or is it this one? It's not that one, it's this one. Okay, so this one's too intense once the camera goes over here. So I'm going to bring down the intensity even more on that. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now his skin is looking a bit too yellow for me. Now that the camera's over here, so I'm going to go for the happy medium, something like that. And yeah, okay, I think that's it, guys. So we go back to frame 0. It's looking pretty good from this point, and that's all good. Let's do a file and save. Okay, guys, so we just need to set this up for render now. Let's go to, we can close down some of these panels. And let's go fit to window. And if we hit render on this, we'll just check out a few of the frames. It's all looking pretty good, so I'm happy enough to go ahead and set this up for render. So we just want to render out the guy and our shadows. So we need to turn off the, first of all, we'll turn off the background of our dome light. Don't need that. And we turn off the background of our Redshift camera as well. So go to background and let's turn this off. And let's now go to our alpha view to check. Okay, we're not getting any shadows and we can see this floor here. So we have to go to our Redshift object tag, and this is why we need to turn on effects alpha. So now you can see that we're just getting our shadows and our guy, and that's perfect. That's what we want. So we go back to our RGB view. We want this to be a transparent background as well. So we need to go into our render settings and make sure that we turn on, in our save, we turn on alpha channel. We don't want to save this as a multi-pass. We're going to be outputting this 1920 by 1080. We're going to be doing all the frames. And also, we do want to turn on motion blur. And that is pretty much it for the render settings. Now, if I do a file save, I am going to be rendering this out using iRender's Render Farm. So I do want to do a file save project with assets, because I'm going to need to upload this to the iRender remote machine. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to create a new folder and we'll call this iRender. Okay, so you can see I was already testing this out. Click on save, and that's going to save this project out along with all our assets that we're going to need. Cool. So now I can close down Cinema, and let's see if I can open up the very handy iRender GPU app. For anybody who wants to use or give iRender a try, You'll be able to download the app. There's tons of tutorials on YouTube, which I'm going to link in the description below as well. But it's a very easy to use render farm. One of the easiest that I've ever used. So this is the project with our Cinema 4D file and all our textures and stuff like that, and our entire movie sequence. So I am going to upload this folder to the iRender GPU. So if I go to transfer data, I have an iRender test that I did here, and it's just a matter of clicking and dragging to upload this. Okay, so that's all uploaded now. I just need to go to the machine GPU. I've already created one of these. You have a number of options. You can pick how many graphics cards you want to use, which version they are, and all that good stuff. But I'm just going to go for the one that I already have set up. I can boot this. So that's booted now. I can connect to the machine remotely. You can see that now I'm now connected. So the plan I've gone for here is the 8 RTX 3090s. Now it's just a matter of opening up Cinema 4D. And with Cinema open, I can then just go and file, open up my, from the remote machine's desktop, open it up the project. So this is our project. It's just what we were working on. So this is good to go. We don't need to do anything with the render settings. We do need to set an output path. So we want to save this to a location on the remote machine. So I'll just double check that everything's good to go. I know it is, but I always like to double check. So if I go to save now, we're going to save this out as a PNG sequence. And we're going to select the desktop. We're going to be rendering this out to the desktop. We can put it into this folder. Let's create a new folder here and call it sequence. And we can just leave it as rendered sequence. Click on, we'll call this mannequin, rendered sequence mannequin, and click on save for that. So if I close this down now, and if I do a file, save, now we can just render this out to picture viewer. And it's going to allocate all the GPU devices. And now we have it. So you can see that it's rendering out there. The first frame took a little bit longer to render out, 55 seconds. But from then on, we're getting, 6 seconds per frame, which is awesome. If I compare that to my rendering it out locally on my single graphics card, of course, render time is going to be slower. But that's iRender GPU. That's the iRender Render Farm, guys. You really need to check it out. It's so simple to use as I just showed you there. So well worth checking out. So this is going to render away. We're going to be able to get our files downloaded from iRender, and we're going to be bringing in our files, or our sequence, I should say, into After Effects, where we're going to be adding the finishing touches. Okay guys, so that's finished rendering. So all I need to do is go to in iRender GPU, to go to the transfer data tab here. We can go to output, this is where we have our sequence. So you can see all of our frames have rendered out nicely in a super fast time. So we have them all here. So it's just a matter of going to the output, and then I'm able to download the sequence from here. So I've already done that. If I jump into After Effects now and double click on this panel here, you can see that I have my sequence that I've downloaded from the iRender GPU app, and there I can just click, make sure PNG sequence is selected, and let's bring this in. So let's bring this down to the on top of our video layer, and let's have a look at this. Okay, so it's looking pretty good, but there's a couple of things I want to change to make it look even better. So you can see that we have this kind of a black outline along the edge of our guy. So to fix that, I want to grab a simple choker. So if I double click, make sure your layer is selected that you want to apply to. Let's grab the simple choker, and we can choke this matte to a value of around 0.8. And you can see now that we are losing that black line, and it just looks way better. But we're also losing a lot of our shadow. So look at our shadow there. It's going away, and we don't want that to happen. So a fix for that is to duplicate this layer, hit Control D, and we can select the layer underneath, turn off Simple Choker. So if I isolate this, we're going to keep our shadows because we're not using the Simple Choker anymore, but we are going to have to create a mask. So let's do that now. Grab our pen tool. Let's go back to frame 0. And we can mask around his feet area just so that we get those shadows. So something like this. Okay, and I'll bring this down a bit. So something like that. So if I unravel this, you can see that we have our masks. We have to create a keyframe on path, and we're going to scrub along to about here and hit V on your keyboard to grab your selection tool. We can lasso select this entire mask and just move this around so that our shadow is going to stay inside of the mask at all times. So you can see that After Effects is going to handle the rest of it for us. We might want to just keep this as low as we can get it without taking away any of the shadows. So that's good. Let's go over here and let's reposition this mask again. We're going to have to increase the actual size of this mask path, just so we're getting all of our shadow, and we can bring this closer to our feet. So somewhere in the middle there, we need to fix that as well. So keyframes are being added automatically here, so it's all good. You don't have to worry about adding keyframes. We're just repositioning the mask path as we go, and After Effects is doing the rest for us. So there's a bit of a dip here, so we better fix that. We'll do that now. Just grab everything and push it up a bit. Cool. Okay, let's keep going. Grab all of our mask paths. We might need to pull this one over a bit. Bring this again down closer to the feet and move this one over a little bit more. So we're getting all that shadow. And keep going. We need to increase the size of this again. And do the same over here. And we want less legs. We just want to keep the shadow in. We don't want the legs. And in the middle there, we can adjust that again as well, making sure we're not cutting off any shadow. And let's keep going with this. So I'm going to fast forward the video here so that you guys don't have to watch me do this tedious part of the tutorial, but just follow along yourselves and reposition your mask. Okay, so that is all done. It's all close enough anyway. And now we can isolate this layer, and if we just center up our footage, we can have a look at this. So that looks pretty good. Now we actually have control over these shadows as well. So if I select this layer and hit T on my keyboard, we can reduce opacity or increase till we get something that we like. So I'm going to go for something like maybe 71%. And that's looking pretty good. So that was worth all the effort because, in my opinion, without the simple choker, those black lines aren't really acceptable. They're really kind of taking away the believability for me anyway. But yeah, so we can see if we go to the very end of this as well, we might need to do something with regards to the shadow mask here, because you can see it's overlapping the table. Now that might not be noticeable to some people, but as I've spotted it, I'm going to try and fix it. So I'm going to use J and K to jump between keyframes here for my mask path. So if I go here, let's see. Do you know what? Actually, all we need to do, because you can't actually notice the shadow once it goes past the whiteness of the table, all we have to do is keep the mask from going past the table, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go K on my keyboard, bring this up, and K on my keyboard again, that's fine. K again, we need to bring that one up and bring that up. So now if we watch that last part, you can see we're not seeing any weirdness with the shadows. Okay, last couple of touches will be to grab a Gaussian blur. And we want to apply this to our main layer. Gaussian blur, we're going to blur this up to maybe about 2.5, something like that. Maybe 2 would be enough. So if we turn it off and on, you can just see that we're getting a bit closer to the actual video quality of our live footage, of our actual footage, I should say. So that's cool. And then finally, we're going to grab a match grain. So make sure the main layer is selected, double click on match grain, and we can set this to final output, and the source layer is going to be this video, which is this video here, and it's basically just going to try and match the grain of our video footage. So that's going to take a little bit longer to load into cache. I'll just pause the video quickly. So one thing I noticed while I was loading that into cache is we need to make an adjustment to our shadow mask. You can see it there. Just around here, you can see that our path is kind of leaving the table there. So we're just going to bring that up. And let's watch that. And it does it again around here. So we just want to watch that, make sure that that's brought up so it's not going to leave the table. Okay, cool. And one last thing actually before we finish this up is I would like to grab a Lumetri effect, and let's make sure the main layer is selected, double click on that. I just want to increase the contrast on this a bit to something like, yeah, something like 46, maybe less, like 30, something like that. Okay. So I'll just turn off match grain with the aim of turning it back on, but just so it loads into cache a bit quicker. But yeah, so that is it, guys. Thank you again for watching. Hope you guys learned a lot. Hope you made it to the very end, and I hope you thought it was valuable to actually do this tutorial again, because I know that a lot of you have already seen me create this exact video before, but I just wanted to run through it using all the latest software, because that video is getting quite past its sell-by date at this stage. So if you think it was valuable, please do let me know in the comments below. And if anybody has not yet subscribed, you might consider doing so. Thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.